You walk out of your Cambridge Information Technology exam feeling like an absolute boss because you perfectly defined every technical term. Then, results day hits. Your grade plummeted. You missed out on an A-star by literally 2 marks. Why? Because you made a tiny, incredibly common mistake that totally ignores what the examiner is actually asking for. Let's expose exactly what that trap is right now so you never fall into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Think about this extremely common answer. Direct data is collected for the first time by the user, indirect data is collected by someone else. Now that sounds correct, right? I mean, it is factually accurate. Yet, in a Cambridge 9626 extended response, dropping this exact answer routinely destroys grade boundaries. You'd get just 1 out of a possible 4 marks for this. It's a realistic, perfectly memorized, and yet fundamentally flawed student answer. So why on earth does it fail so miserably? Well, the reason it bombs is pretty simple. Ordinary revision totally fails you here, because rote memorization completely ignores the scenario's context. In the Cambridge AS Level IT syllabus, especially in that chapter on data processing, you do not get top marks by just naming a concept in a vacuum. You actively lose marks when you don't anchor your explanations to the specific situation they gave you in the question. The terminology only becomes meaningful and actually mark-worthy when you apply it directly to the problem it solves or the device it involves in that specific scenario. To fix this, we've got to lock down the core theoretical foundation first. Direct data is data collected for an original, specific purpose. It's gathered firsthand by the person or the system that actually needs it. In contrast, indirect data is collected for a secondary purpose, sourced from somewhere or someone else. But look, just knowing this contrast, that's just the baseline. It's what you actually do with these definitions in practice that gets you the marks. Now, here is exactly where students typically slip up. Typical AS-level IT errors happen when you confuse direct and indirect data with other closely related, heavily tested concepts. You might find yourself accidentally blurring the lines between direct and indirect data, or maybe validation versus verification, or even online versus real-time processing. Your revision notes and your exam answers absolutely require comparative thinking. You have to clearly distinguish the technology you're talking about from the one sitting right next to it in the syllabus. So, how do we guarantee full marks? In a moment, I'll show you the exact examiner clue that flips that initial failing answer from a 1 out of 4 into a guaranteed top band score. But first, what is the framework that makes that clue completely obvious? Honestly, if you click away from this explainer right now, you are going to miss the structural secret that forces your brain to give the examiner exactly what they want. Okay, so here is that secret. It's the high mark framework, also known as PEELJ. Point, evidence, explanation, link, and judgment. This is the disciplined path your technical methodology absolutely must follow. Think of it like this. You identify the exact requirement, that's your point. You classify the relevant data or hardware, there's your evidence. Then you clearly sequence how the process works, which is your explanation. You connect it back to the scenario, your link, and finally you evaluate its impact, your judgment. This structure mirrors exactly how marks are earned in extended responses because it forces you to adapt your technical knowledge straight to the scenario. Let's see how this actually builds when we apply it to a Cambridge-style payroll scenario. Instead of just defining the terms like we did earlier, an improved top band response sounds more like this. In this payroll scenario, direct data from employee timesheets ensures high accuracy for calculating hourly wages. Indirect data, such as government tax brackets imported from an external database, saves processing time, meaning the payroll is both legally compliant and efficient. Notice what we did there. We didn't just define the words, we classified the data, explained how it works in sequence, and linked it straight back to the payroll. And this brilliantly illustrates the difference. A generic student answer simply states, direct data is collected by the user, and that earns just 1 measly mark. But the contextualized examiner correction links timesheets to accuracy and tax brackets to processing time, easily securing all 4 marks. Examiner-style performance completely depends on this kind of specificity. Generic points rarely, if ever, gain full marks. Whether the context is a secure website, a spreadsheet task, or a multimedia workflow, your answer has to live entirely within that world. All right, let's escalate the stakes a bit. Consider this new, significantly harder, mixed concept scenario. The hospital uses indirect data from a third-party database to monitor patient vitals in real time. Now that sounds highly technical and pretty sophisticated, doesn't it? If this was a scenario-based judgment question, a student might write this down, thinking they've totally nailed the terminology. But spot the error.
What is completely wrong with this hospital scenario answer? Think back to the comparative concepts we discussed earlier. Really think about how real-world data collection actually works in a medical emergency. I'll give you a second to diagnose the problem. What's the fatal flaw here?
Did you catch it? Real-time patient monitoring relies on direct sensor data. We're talking about heart rate monitors physically attached to the patient, collecting original data for an immediate purpose. It absolutely does not rely on indirect databases. Naming a technique without explaining how it works in context is a classic wrong turn. Describing a technology that only sounds related but would actually fail in the real world caps your score instantly. Remember, failing to match your explanation to the scenario will destroy your grade, no matter how much dictionary theory you've managed to memorize. So, the absolutely crucial point here is making sure your revision actually prepares you for these traps. Here is a highly reliable revision cycle checklist for you, the 4-prompt memory check. Ask yourself aloud, what is it? How does it work? Where is it used? And why is it better or worse than an alternative in that specific situation? If you can answer those 4 prompts aloud for direct and indirect data, linking it to a hospital, a payroll, or maybe a transport system, then your topic is ready for the exam. If not, you need to rebuild your understanding from a worked example. But wait, here is where we hit a massive, totally unresolved problem. Let's say you've mastered the data, you have the PEEL framework locked in, and your context is absolutely perfect. But what if the examiner's command word at the very start of the question is evaluate instead of explain? Using the perfect framework is still going to result in failure if you misread this hidden command word clue. The way you apply your knowledge must completely shift based on just one single verb. If you don't know exactly how to pivot your strategy when you see evaluate versus analyze or describe, all of this beautiful contextual work just goes straight out the window. To find out exactly how command words dictate your mark scheme, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Ace the Exams, at acetheexams_IGCSE to excel in your Cambridge examinations. I'll see you in the next explainer where we decode those hidden commands that ultimately decide your final grade.